What's going on, guys? Sharpshot here. Hope you guys are having a great day so far. So today's video we're going to be going over the top 3 most fun survivor builds in DBD. These builds are obviously going to be used to have the most fun possible in every trial. With that being said though, if you use these builds correctly, they still are pretty effective and you will still be able to perform really well in every trial you use these builds in. It's just that instead of maximizing your blood points or maximizing your rank, you're adding a little bit more fun to it. I'm going to rank these 3 builds from worst to best, with third being the worst and first being the best. But with that being said, everybody has a different definition of what they think is fun, so you might find that number 3 is way more fun to use than number 1. It's all up to your playstyle. And for each build, I'm going to be analyzing each perk and then summarize why these 4 perks fit so well together in making the most fun possible build. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into the video. Coming in at number 3, we have the No Mither build. This build focuses on maximizing the positive aspects of No Mither and being injured the entire trial. Even though you are injured the entire trial with this build, you get to use a lot of different abilities and have a lot of different powers at your disposal, so it's actually pretty fun. With that being said, the perks that are going to be in this build are obviously No Mither, Dead Hard, Resilience, and Spine Chill. No Mither is obviously the staple of this build, being the No Mither build. Despite the fact that you're injured and can't be healed the entire trial and you're basically one shot, you don't drop any pools of blood and you can fully recover from the dying state. And at tier 3, your grunts of pain are reduced by 75% and you also recover from the dying state 25% faster. So you basically have a built-in Lucky Break, Iron Will, and Unbreakable. Dead Hard is the exhaustion perk of the build, and since you can only use this perk when you're injured, you're going to get so much more value out of it than you normally would. It'll give you a second chance and it will give you the ability to actually maybe even escape chases. So having an exhaustion perk that you can use all the time is really good when you're using No Mither, because you're going to be targeted a lot because you're always one shot. Resilience is another perk that only gets value when you're injured, and basically when you are injured at tier 3, you get 9% bonus action speeds on basically everything you do in a trial. Obviously you're going to be injured the entire trial with No Mither, so you're going to be able to get the maximum possible value out of resilience, being able to do things 9% faster the entire match, so it's actually really good value there. Spine Chill is a really good stealth perk that has good value in and outside of chases. Being injured with No Mither, you're going to be super vulnerable to the killer, so being able to know when the killer is coming at you ahead of time, when the little icon for Spine Chill lights up, that'll give you the extra few seconds to get ahead in the chase and gain as much distance from the killer as you can. Or if you just want to stay stealthy, if you want to hide from the killer. And when this perk is active, you also get 6% bonus action speed, so it also has good value there. Being able to vault pallets quicker in a chase, for example. These 4 perks work really well together, making a really fun build. No Mither obviously is the staple of this build. This is basically a 3-in-1 perk with the slight con that you are injured the entire trial, but the fact that you are injured allows you to get so much use out of Dead Hard and Resilience, because those perks you can only use when you're injured. So with Dead Hard, you're always gonna have a really good exhaustion perk at your disposal, and with Resilience, you're gonna be able to do everything faster. Speaking of doing everything faster, when you're inside of a chase, you're gonna benefit a lot from the Spine Chill plus Resilience combo, being able to do things 15% faster while Spine Chill is active at tier 3. You get to vault things 15% faster, which actually makes a big difference. And maybe if you're opening an exit gate, you'll be able to do that 15% faster, so it can come in pretty clutch. On its own, Spine Chill is also a really good perk when you're running No Mither and you're really vulnerable to the killer. Spine Chill will get you out of a lot of sticky situations. So overall, even though you will be injured the entire trial with No Mither, you're gonna have a ton of fun and you're gonna get a ton of value out of the perks in this build. Coming in at number 2, we have the Infinite Exhaustion build. As it says in its name, this build focuses on the exhaustion status effect and getting as much value out of his exhaustion perks as possible. Exhaustion perks are so fun to use in and outside of chases, and you're gonna have 3 of them, so it'll be really fun to catch the killer off guard with all of your different combinations. The perks that will be in this build are Lithe, Dead Hard, Adrenaline, and Vigil. Lithe is the first exhaustion perk on this build, which allows you to get a sprint burst whenever you fast vault a pallet or a window. So basically whenever you run into a vault, you get the sprint burst after it. This is, my opinion, my favorite exhaustion perk, because it's basically an activatable sprint burst. In a build with multiple exhaustion perks, it's kind of a must-have that the exhaustion perks you run are activatable, and Lithe is, in my opinion, the best controllable sprint burst. Dead Hard is the second exhaustion perk in this build, and when you're injured, you're going to be able to get a lot of use out of this because because you'll be able to quickly dash forward and get a second chance in your chase. And since this one is activatable as well, you'll be able to control when you want to use Lithe or when you want to save the exhaustion meter for dead hard when you're injured. The third exhaustion perk on this build is Adrenaline. A lot of people might not consider this an exhaustion perk, but it does use the exhaustion status effect, and basically whenever the exit gates get powered or all 5 gens get completed, you get a mega sprint burst and you heal a health state. In some scenarios, this can be really clutch in allowing you to escape a chase with the sprint burst or even revive from the dying state with the extra health state heal. So this perk will be a lot of value late game. When you're running all of these exhaustion perks, Vigil will be a really good perk to have because at tier 3, it'll allow you to recover from the exhaustion status effect and a lot of other status effects 30% faster. So being able to recover and use those exhaustion perks that much faster is going to be really good when all of your perks rely on one singular status effect. And if you're smart about it, you might even be able to use 2 exhaustion status effects in one chase. This can be really tough to pull off, but for example, if you use Light really early on in a chase and then you recover a little bit, you might even be able to get value out of Dead Hard, so you'll be able to get 2 exhaustion perks in one chase, which will be really fun to try and pull off. These 4 perks work really well together in making a really fun exhaustion build because you have Lithe and Dead Hard combo together as the 2 main exhaustion perks. You'll be able to decide which perk you want to use in which situations. You might want to use Lithe early on in a loop to try and actually escape the killer, or you might want to save your exhaustion until you're injured and be able to use either Lithe or Dead Hard. You'll have a lot of fun deciding when you want to use what perk. And Adrenaline is always a nice little addition to this build because it'll be really clutch late game. And finally, Vigil ties these perks all together in letting you get even more value and even more use out of your exhaustion perks, so you can have even more fun using your exhaustion status effect and maybe even using it more than once in a chase. Coming in at number 1, we have the anti-hook build. This is a really niche build that actually focuses on preventing the killer from hooking when the killer picks up the other survivors. And this build will be a lot of fun because you're always going to be in the heat of the moment right up next to the killer, and when the survivors end up wiggling out of the killer's grasp, it'll be really fun and super satisfying. So if you're using this with friends or in solo queue, it'll be really fun to pull off those saves. And the 4 perks that are going to be in this build are Breakout, Saboteur, Dead Hard, or either Borrow Time and Iron Will. Breakout is a must-have on this build because whenever you're within 6 meters of the killer while they're carrying a survivor, you gain the haste status effect, moving 7% faster at tier 3. And on top of that, the survivor that's getting carried by the killer has their wiggle out speed increased by 20%. So obviously in a build where you want the survivors to wiggle out, this is a must-have, with the survivor being able to wiggle out that much faster, and you get to move a lot quicker. So if you get up really close to the killer and they try and M1 you really quickly, you're going to be moving a lot faster than they think you are, and you'll be able to dodge a lot of those, which will buy the survivor getting carried even more time to wiggle out. Saboteur will allow you to sabotage hooks without needing a toolbox, which is really useful because this perk also allows you to see the aura of all of the hooks within 56 meters of you. So if you're right next to a carry survivor and the killer, you'll be able to see most likely which hook they're going to go to, and you're going to be able to quickly go up to that hook and then break it and sabotage it, and this will buy the survivor even more time to eventually wiggle out of the killer's grasp. Dead Hard is not going to be used on this build like you think it will be. Obviously, if the killer is chasing you and he's not carrying a survivor, you can use Dead Hard like you normally would as a regular exhaustion perk to try and escape the chase. But the way you're going to be using this is actually to take an extra hit when the killer is carrying a survivor. So in a scenario where you're taking hits from the killer while they're carrying a survivor, you're going to be able to take 2 hits until you're in the dying state. One when you're healthy that goes down to injured, and the second goes from injured to the dying state. You being in the dying state is no good. So instead, when you're about to take the second hit, when you're about to go from the injured state to the dying state, you Dead Hard so that the hit doesn't go through. In that time span, if you're healthy, the killer will have M1 twice, which will buy the survivor so much time in wiggling that they're most likely going to be able to wiggle out. And finally, you have 2 options with this 4th perk. You can either run Borrow Time or Iron Will. Borrow Time is a good last resort perk. If none of the wiggling out works and the killer ends up hooking the survivor, you'll be able to quickly get the unhook and save that survivor. Or you can go the other direction and use Iron Will and using a flashlight, because you'll be able to sneak up on the killer even if you're injured. You'll either get the flashlight save, and if that doesn't work, you'll be able to get the wiggle out value. These 4 perks work really well together in making a really fun wiggle out build, because Breakout is the staple of the build and actually allows the survivor to wiggle that much faster. And when you have Saboteur Saboteur and Dead Hard. Saboteur will allow you to buy even more time wiggling by having the killer have to go to another hook, and when you take hits with Dead Hard, you'll more than likely get the wiggle out every time if you use these 3 perks. And finally, that 4th perk will either allow you to get the last resorts if the wiggle outs fail and then the killer's hook with borrowed time, or you can even ignore all of the wiggle out and just go for the flashlight save, and if that fails, then you get the wiggle out value. So overall, this build will be really fun in helping save your other survivors. So yeah guys, those are the top 3 most fun survivor builds in DBD. Let me know in the comments what your favorite fun build is when you just want to have fun playing DBD, and maybe I'll even do a part 2 to this video with your guys' build if you guys want to see that. So yeah guys, that's been the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you're new. This has been Sharpshot, and I will see you guys in the next video.